certainly have opportunities for everybody to share some of the things that are taking place in your organizations today. And as always, welcome you guys making time to join us. Love any type of background noises like that, because this is our reality, right? You will occasionally see my daughter pop in on Zoom calls. She bombs my calls all the time. So anyway, hey, the Quillo team is excited to have you here. As you know, Sue Gordon, we've got John, Rebecca is up in Minnesota, and then Kisa also here in Indianapolis. So welcome to everyone who's joining us today. We will be recording, so again, if you have other folks that you would like to see the recording, please share that with them. We'll get that out probably sometime tomorrow. As we always do, we welcome your comments, ideas, suggestions, so please take your mouse down to the bottom, unmute your microphones, or use the chat feature to let us know what's on your mind so that we can share the information and share that with everybody. So please feel free to do that. Our agenda today really is, we're going to kick off with sharing some good news, and we want to hear from you. I'll share a couple stories just from my own personal experience, but I think it's important that we have an opportunity to share, you know, what are the good things that are happening for us right now. We'll dive into that, finding your balance, especially in your messaging. And I think we've got some, again, some tools, some ideas, some ways that you might be able to look at that a little differently. Last month, we talked about some habits. So if any of you are doing just a quick 15-minute habit, that you took that challenge last month and said, you know, hey, let me try something different for 15 minutes a day. We'd love to hear maybe what you're doing. And then we'll just wrap up with some self-care videos that we have out there on the app. So again, you can use them yourself or, you know, reference them to your staff. That would be great. And then we'll just talk about our next call moving forward. So today we have folks from different parts of the country. So let's just real quick go out there on that chat feature, type in your name, say hello, and tell us what state you're from so we can kind of see where we have folks coming in from today. That would be great. Got Colleen from Indiana, Meredith, she's up in Illinois. Thanks for being in today. Any others? I know we've got Las Vegas, Christy from Indiana again, great. Anybody else chat? Barb, thanks, Minnesota, yay, we got it on there. And Kelly from Wisconsin. Yeah, Kelly, we got you, audio only, that's not a problem, okay. All right, so again, different states, different things taking place in each of those states. So please use the chat feature or unmic or unmute and use your microphone to share with us what's happening in your world. So with that, let's open up with a little bit about good news. And you know, every day we have the privilege of actually speaking with different subscribers across the country and kind of hearing what's taking place out there. And we are so excited to always hear, you know, what other organizations are doing to really help clients and whatnot. But I'm going to share just a couple stories about myself personally and how I've gotten a little bit differently connected based upon, I guess, the situations taking place today. So one is first, somebody invited me to a Facebook group, and I have to say, up until this point, I have not been part of a lot of groups on Facebook or anything, but this particular group was a group called Friends Helping Friends, and it's really a group of parents who are, again, all of us have people being supported with disabilities, and so I've just found it interesting because you know, people are on the chat feature in the Facebook group just asking for simple things. You know, hey, I'm having problems connecting with SSI. You know, is there another way that I can do this? Is there someone you know that can help me do this? So very appreciative, and you know, even to the extreme of someone the other day was just looking for a grocery store that had toilet paper. So, I've found this group just to be very helpful. So again, as provider agencies, because I learned about this group through the provider agency that we use with my daughter, and it's just very helpful to have that particular resource. So I found that to be just a good news story in terms of connecting me as a parent with others, that if there is anything that I need, I can certainly do that. The other great experience that we had with my daughter was, of course, everything has, kind of shut down. There's no outings, there's no day programs. She's not going to school anymore at this time. So one of the things that took place for us was one of the organizations that she does belong to, they continued their programming through Zoom, of course, and doing dance parties on Saturdays. So those dance parties happen like at 1:30 in the afternoon, and I have to tell you, she looks so forward to having a dance party. And it's very simple. What they do is they just simply tell each of the participants to have ready on their phone or whatever, a favorite song that they like. My daughters are always High School Musical songs, and they play them, and then everybody just dances together. Then they'll stop for a few moments, and then they'll tell knock-knock jokes together. So it's just a great relief, and she just looks forward to it. So they had their first dance party, and it was so successful that they've now scheduled them for every Saturday, and she's just looking so forward to that. So those, when I think about good news stories, those are the type of things that are taking place, that are happening, that are so important. So I do want to give all of you an opportunity to share any of the ideas that you're doing with your families, with your clients. Let's help each other.
So today I had the privilege, my colleague Joe and I went out, a young man that we support turned 30. And of course they're in quarantine, so
Yep.
his family had to come there, but his mom arranged to have the yard decorated, which was so cool.
Oh, that's neat.
And yep, the young man loves dogs, so it was a dog theme, saying happy birthday and honk for Sam. But Joe and I went up there today and we grabbed some video of the parents. Sam was actually in an upstairs room with the window open, and the parents sung happy birthday to him.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
just the delight that he had, and it was really a day brightener. It was really great. Of course, the video we captured, we're going to use on Facebook.
Yeah.
We're going to make a little Quillo video too, because it just made me smile.
It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so fun. And then, so the really cool thing, not that that wasn't cool, but the mom called me later and she said, Sam enjoyed that so much. I'd like to do that for 5 other individuals that you support that maybe aren't going to be able to have a birthday party. So I just thought that was so cool. It's like, it almost lights a fire, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It makes it, yeah, it's just awesome. One of the other cool things that Emily's teachers did when they were getting ready to start back to school was they had put together little bags of goodies and brought them around, and then they chalked on the sidewalk, "We miss you, Emily," from sight. And so she walks out on the sidewalk and she sees this sign, and it's done in colored chalk. They got rainbows and stars and everything. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's for me." And it was so cool because it was, chalked on right on the sidewalk at the end of our drive. And it was just a nice little, like, "We miss you, Emily, but welcome back." And then there's a little goodie bag sitting there. So it was a great experience. Others?
The nice thing about that, Sue and Barbara, is that we're also giving people a chance to get out of their house to also do something safe for others. And we shouldn't underestimate it. That's what has always drawn people together, the chance to be doing something good for others. And so finding those ways and sharing them along the way are all such fun things. You know, we heard a story about folks that did a Facebook talent contest. So everybody in their homes did a talent contest, and they loaded them up on a Facebook page, and then people voted on it, and then they found the winners, and of course everybody became a winner. But they learned that they had people, both staff and individuals with disabilities, that had talents that nobody had known about before. And it just brought people closer as they were starting to think about that. And also for people that couldn't visit their friends, they could see them singing a song, doing a painting, doing whatever that brought them joy in what they were doing.
Yeah.
So
Very good.
very cool. Very cool.
Great. Any others anybody would like to share before we?
We've had a pretty cool thing going on at Trinity where we receive our accreditation through the Council on Quality and Leadership, CQL, and their 21 personal outcome measures are pretty central to what we focus on with the people we support. And our community day services staff, since all of our programs are temporarily closed, have actually worked on curriculum that is being delivered to all of our residential locations on a weekly basis. So every single week there's a different focus. And so far we've focused on health, we've focused on being connected to friends, and this week the focus is on using your environment. So people are having picnics, cooking, doing different things.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love how you're taking advantage of this time too to kind of have your staff kind of do the curriculum. So that's great. And hey,
Terry, it's great to see your son there joining you, Terry.
I was going to say we've got a friend
Bradley with me here today.
That's great.
Okay. Well, and Meredith,
Hi,
you guys
Bradley.
are doing some great outreach out to other parts of the community. I just had a great chance to talk with Thane for about an hour today about some of the real innovations you're doing, not only with your staff to help them be safe and help them out with other issues in their community, but Trinity's just doing some amazing things about trying to outreach to other parts of the community to see what we can do to help. And congratulations and hats off to you guys for that.
Thank you.
Great. Anybody else? Well, we always love hearing the good news stories. So as we continue forward with our Quillo Nation calls, we do want to bring those to the forefront. So if you're going to be with us, please share some of that good news that is taking place in your agencies, your organizations, the people that you're supporting. I think it's always good to hear that all the positive things that are coming out of this, because you do have to look for the opportunities at this point. Great.
I do. This is Colleen. I do appreciate Rebecca and Keisha reaching out last week to help with some videos. They were very open to me sending them some videos so they can do the editing, just because I feel like I'm sitting at the computer on so many conference calls and trying to keep up with emails and all that, that it's great to have that support from Quillo and you guys to help get us some additional videos about what's going on at Marici. So we do appreciate your staff for that help.
Thanks, Colleen.
Great.
Well, we do want to extend that to anybody. If there is anything that Quillo can be helping with to support you, please let one of our staff members know. We're here to help you guys be successful. We know that there's a lot of things that are certainly taking up your time right now. So if we can be of assistance, please reach out and let us know. Well, with that, I'd like to take it over to John and let him continue our conversation with kind of finding that balance in our messaging. So John?
One of the things that we've been talking to folks a lot about in the last few weeks is, you know, we're living through a time that history is going to write a lot about, and how we came together as a country, as a community, and dealt with a challenge that's unlike anything in my history of working in our field or living in this country. And so we started thinking about the balancing in our message. And so Rebecca's going to help me and advance the slides here. So we have a couple of choices on extremes. So we think about the messaging that we're giving to our families. On one extreme, we can say, hey, everything's cool. It's fine, no worries. Kind of have these rose-colored glasses on that, you know, just do your best, we're going to be fine. On the other extreme is alert. Everything's terrible, panic, despair, helpless. There's nothing you can do about it. Both of those are not the most appropriate responses. So as we looked at this and talked to some experts, we said, you know, we really want to be targeting somewhere just a little bit right of center there. And this is just a choice you've got to make within your own organization, with the message that perhaps this is a very tough time, but we're going to get through it together and celebrate where we're at on that process. And as we pick out where we want to message to our people, we also have to be aware of the messages they're hearing from so many different places. So if you think about it now, people are getting external messaging all the time, our staff, our families, the people they serve. So number one is health concerns, and maybe there's some good news from a doctor. There's financial concerns. I think Tracy had to get off. She was in Las Vegas where their entire community is shut down because it's all built around hospitality. So dollar concerns from people is really key. If people have heard from their family, that's a good thing. Number one thing we heard on our survey when we asked people how they're coping with the COVID-19 crisis, one of the top responses was, I get encouragement from my family because they know my work with people with disabilities is important. And that's what helps them go. But then you have social isolation. You've got media overload with news and what's going out. And sometimes there's too much information. Sometimes there's not enough information. A CEO that I talked to this morning, they're a very large agency, and they've had some cases of individuals as well as staff test positive, and some have become quite sick. And they've been very open and shared with folks, not names, of course, because that's private, but here's what we're experiencing. And people said, we're glad you're telling us because we're afraid it would just be covered up. Now, why they thought that would be covered up, it has more to do with what they hear on the media than it is the history of the organization. So these external factors are always out there for us, and we just need to be aware of them because that's what affects people's well-being positively or negatively. So as we start thinking about it, the question would be to ask, what has our messaging been as an organization over the last 10 days? Where does it fall on this line, and how do we support our people with that? So if we start thinking about, we just start looking at individual messages folks are getting from the organization, from their supervisors. Some of them clearly have to be warnings or things to be concerned about. Others may be coming along closer in there, and some may be more on the positive side. But if our messaging is overbalanced on one side or the other, it really draws that line that you're trying to hit and pulls it in the other direction. So how do we make sure we're sending out the positive energy out to people to bring that line closer to the middle and where you want that to be? We also have to be aware that some of our messages are heard differently than we intend them. So we may intend it to be a very positive message, but it comes across more on the negative side. Or we think it might be heard as a positive, a negative, but you're being transparent and telling people what's going on. And that's seen as good information to have. And again, when I talked to this CEO, he was just amazed that people thought they would cover up anybody being sick. And instead, he found it was very positive to tell people, here's what we're doing. So we want to support people, not that we won't be able to give bad messages out or tough messages to people, but how do we do that? And so one of the things we want to think about is how do we flip some messages? So I was talking to another CEO, and he said to me, we had 58 shifts that went uncovered last week. And so he was talking with his managers, because those managers are 54 shifts. Those managers had to cover those shifts. And I know some of you have actually covered shifts when people haven't come to work. So we sat and talked with him about it. And I said, well, how many sites do you have? He said, well, 134 different sites that we support people in their homes. And I said, so minimum, you have 134 shifts every 8 hours. I said, that's 390. I said, I was a football player in math. Let's round it off. That's 400 shifts a day. 7 days a week, that's 2,800 shifts. So instead of saying, just focusing on, we missed 54, what if you said instead, we covered 98% of shifts during a pandemic? And he said, well, that sure makes me feel better than looking at it the other way. Now, it is terrible to have 54 people, possibly, or 54 sites without somebody in their shift there. But how do you recognize people showing up? They went back and we talked through it. And he said, we're going to do a gift card to everybody that showed up and just say thank you. And I said, well, you might also want to check on the 54 people that missed, because maybe they had a temperature and they thought it was better not to come in, to be able to think about that. So it's that question about perception and how do we focus our energy and our responses back to people. And yes, it's a big deal to miss 54 shifts, but you also covered 2,760 shifts. And that's a lot. And everybody can do the math around that. So we talked about some other ways of flipping the message. Instead of asking somebody, why were you late? And ask them, is everything okay? Are they caring for somebody that's sick at home? Are they worried? Because if our message is also, don't come in if you're not feeling good, we don't want people to feel penalized because they stay at home if they're not feeling well. Are we stuck at home, or are we safe at home? And that's important as we start communicating with the people we serve, that this is all about being safe and thinking about the impact of that. And then everywhere I turn, all the news is scary. And if you just look at the news, it can drive you a bit wild. And because everything is focused more on the negative than the positive. So instead, can we be informed? A psychologist friend of mine in Philadelphia, Robert Nassif, who has contributed several videos for us, said he is suggesting to his patients that they only watch 30 minutes of news a day. That you want to limit, you want to be informed, but if all you do is focus on the negative energy and emotions, it'll be that much different. How do we focus on the positive as we look at it? And then lastly, as we start thinking about flipping the message, and people have said to me, we're in over our head and we're stretched too thin. We feel buried, that we're just over our heads. And we turn that around and say, we know this is a lot to handle. It's hard. Let's take it one step at a time together. And today's message in this Q to You series that we started talks about, do you feel buried? Or are you like are you a seed that has been planted and you're going to grow through this? It all helps on how do we share that positive energy. And the last thing that I would say to you is you look at that chart about the positive, the messaging that you're sending out. What are the messages you're getting? Because you as a leader get messages differently than your staff do. You're hearing them from external people to your agency, people that are having challenges, staff that are having challenges, state government that isn't always as flexible as they could be. And you you've got to figure out how do you take care of yourself in this. And if you're not getting enough positive support messages from what you're doing right now, how do you go look for them? Barbara, I loved your story, but what I really appreciated is when you talked about how it made you feel. So that you found a way to build that resilience up on the one side, so that when you take the next 5 calls that are negative, you've got that cup filled of, here's the things we are doing well. Because we are going to get, as leaders, you're going to have to deal with a lot of tough messages and questions that come in along the way. So what other suggestions do you have about how you have handled messaging and words out to your staff, or how you're coping with this yourself? Anybody would like to offer in?
This is Colleen. I know Christy and I have tried to do some videos to staff and to families, just instead of just emails. It's so hard to necessarily read emails, and I think we've learned from Quillo that the benefit of a video is pretty important. We did a video to families yesterday in our weekly update, and I got a lot of positive feedback from them, saying they liked, to hear what we were doing. And we just uploaded it to a YouTube and made it kind of an unlisted link, and that worked well. So I know Christy sent one out to coaches last week, so you can talk about that, Christy.
Yeah, that personal touch is, is helpful. We're so used to seeing everyone, in the office, and I'm working from home. So that's, just been very different for all of us. So that, I think it was helpful for a lot of people to actually, hear our voices and see that we're still here and not just emailing away all of the things that, on a to-do list or, anything like that. So trying to build them up as much as we can and keep everybody, more on the positive side. That's important for sure. So.
Great. Anybody else?
So we've started to do a Friday favorites video, and it's kind of organic, kind of whatever, on Monday we talk about, and it's a real, shorter than a minute Quillo video. This week we're doing it around, we just delivered masks to staff and individuals. And so our messaging is kind of like thanking staff, keeping people safe. Thank you volunteers for making these 1,500 masks. And everybody is sending their photo of themselves or their individual in a mask. So we'll see what it turns out to be. But we try to do something every Friday that's relevant and uplifting, and either a thank you or a we appreciate you, or just something like that. So that's kind of what we're doing for a strategy of morale booster. And then John has been also giving every couple week updates.
Excellent. Well, Kelly shared a great story there in Wisconsin where they've started offering childcare for staff that have school-age kids. There are some very concrete things we can do to begin thinking about that, and how do we find ways to see where people are at and what other resources are out there. Great idea.
Kelly also added to the chat, if you can see it, that asking people, what can I do to help? Helping get to work on time, staying focused, helping you cope, helping at home, which I like that too, just to offer and extend that hand and hopefully start a dialogue to get to, how are things going? So have some solutions there. Thanks for sharing, Kelly.
Great. Well, I'm going to throw it back to Sue now, because we're going to talk a little bit about, this leads into some of the resources we have out there that may be helpful for you as you start looking at the issues, and including the ability to hire people now when unemployment is so high.
Yeah, so absolutely. If you go to our resources page, which is on myquillo.com/resources, you can find some of these particular articles. And one of the topics we know that is still ongoing is you have to continue to hire staff. I'm assuming everybody's still in that mode of trying to find staff. So if you, again, need a nice resource, read the 17 Ways to Excite, Ignite, and Inspire. It's a good read and gives you some different ideas on what you can do to really engage, especially new hires coming on. The other thing that I know is always a concern after several years of human resources and working with people is, you know, you hire staff today. Well, what happens if they get called back to their other job? You know, should that deter us from actually hiring them on? And, you know, one way to think about that is from the perspective of, you know what, if they've come on board with you, you've given them a positive experience. And granted, maybe they're leaving for, you know, that bigger paycheck or whatever, but they now can be also an advocate for you. We were talking with one provider agency who, again, tries to leverage that. So there are former DSPs that have worked with them, but you don't know who they know, how they can help support you once they would move on back to their previous jobs. So I guess the message there is don't let that deter you from hiring them. And we know it's a lot of work up front because you're orienting them and whatnot, but they also can be strong advocates if they go back to their jobs and help you find other people. That's kind of like flipping that message. So if they say so long, say, well, you know what? If you know of other people, will you send them our way? And then it's up to you to help retain that person, right? In terms of what the things that you do. Financial support, we have a nice article down to the penny. I'm sorry, John, did you want to add something to that?
Oh, just the other comment he made, and I apologize for jumping in, but the other comment he made, so somebody does go back and they go back to work in a factory or a job that pays a lot more. As they're, you know, as you go through that exit and that process, he said, you know, they can become ambassadors for you to help convince that company to hire people with disabilities as hiring picks up and they begin going. So the fact that they may work only 4 or 5 months for you is a great chance to build an ambassador relationship for something that could come later. And they may find more meaningful work in what you're doing. So I just thought that would be something there's to think about, that it's an opportunity. It's always not just a, and I think Sue's right. Don't let it deter you from hiring somebody if you think you might lose them down the road. Sorry, Sue. Thanks.
No, that's great. Good input. So, so we got to continue to look then, you know, our financial support, again, as many of you know, people are struggling right now. So are there other ways that the organization might help? The Down to the Penny is another great resource, a good read, because that is a best practices that we've heard from some of our folks who are across the country and what they're doing to help support their staffs. And finally, making content. Colleen already mentioned that, you know, we're here to help you. There's some great content on the MyQuillo.com resources. However, you can also reach out directly to us, and Kisa, Rebecca are here to help with helping you create whatever content is necessary. So leverage those particular resources. Also, we also have some related videos. As you know, this particular virus has certainly made us relook at how we're staying healthy, things that we're doing. So some of the resources that we have really help reinforce those messages. So here's again a good listing of related videos that might be helpful as you think about what you're doing with your folks. One of the things that you can do, and Zoom is a great way to do this, is you can actually take and show a video. So maybe there is a staff meeting or something taking place with parents. Perhaps you go out to the Quillo app and go ahead and show one of the resources. The best way to do that is to go on your desktop and pull up the videos, and then you can play them for your meetings. But these are, again, some great videos that help everything from the soapy suds, why they work. Again, just a good informational piece, as well as bringing calm to yourself if you just need that moment by yourself. So please make sure you check out these particular videos.
One quick thing I'll add to that, if you find that you do want to share any videos that you've made, you know, with the birthday party or anything else with your staff, not all video platforms share sound as well. Zoom is one that shares audio with video. So when you go to share your screen, there's a little box you need to check that says share computer sound. Otherwise, they'll just be seeing the video itself. Just a tip. We learned that one the hard way. So.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to do a little practice session among your staff members. I know we do that all the time too.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's another great way as you think about your messaging is run it by another staff person. I know at Quillo we do that all the time. And again, you have another person who's looking at that particular message. They might write it just a little bit different so that the tone or the way it's going to be perceived might look a little bit different too. So make sure you take advantage of those skills from all of your team members. Great.
Sue, the one that came out in a suggestion to us was Rebecca and Kisa did the cue to you about group activities while staying indoors. And one of them was a scavenger hunt. And one of the folks at Project Start said, a great way you could do that he said, I think you'll find some surprising results, is make it a scavenger hunt of their favorite things. And the idea that we start asking people with disabilities and their staff, what are their favorite things in the home? And all of a sudden, you start learning, okay, what do they really like doing? What is it that is your favorite? What brings you joy? And the staff and the individuals start sharing more about things that are important to them. And they said, maybe you could then make a list of those things. And then you start saying, okay, what have we done to celebrate those favorite things every day? That it's not just our routines that the rules make us, but if it brings you joy to play Scrabble, how do we make sure you get to play Scrabble online or in person or however you do this? And find those things that people get to know. And she was telling me a story about they learned that one of their staff at one of their agencies they worked with loves singing gospel music. And the next thing you know, the home had started its own little gospel choir. And they'd practice for 30 minutes a day. And everybody just loved supporting her in her love of singing. So just a thought.
Great. Well, Colleen has a little message here saying that she has is it a photo video scavenger hunt that you did with your staff? Tell us a little bit more about that, Colleen.
Yeah, we offered it to all the staff. We gave them like 4 days and then gave out prizes for the top 4. There was a series of things they had to find either with themselves in their own home or with a person they supported. So everything from has the oldest expiration date in your refrigerator, what do you like? I think there were a total of about 20 questions they had to send pictures or short videos of. So I can send that and share with people. I think some people didn't do it, but several did, and it was kind of fun. So
that's a great idea.
Gave out a gift card to their favorite restaurant. So
yeah, excellent idea. Great. Yeah, if you share that with us, we'll certainly add that to our notes tomorrow. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll send that to you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, some of these videos, again, just take the time on your own phone to watch these. Very helpful. So any other ideas or thoughts? Great. Well, we do appreciate everybody's input today. And if you think about last week, I just want to kind of touch base a little bit and ask you, was there a new habit you tried? Some of you were on the phone last week with us. Maybe you watched the replay of the video. But is there a new habit or something that you're trying differently that is helping you? I know for myself, one of the things, and this actually started a couple months ago when we all ended up working from home. I started doing a meditation for just 15 minutes in the morning to get my day started. I had to do something different. So that was a new habit that I started personally, just to try something different. And now what it's done is it just has continued. Not only do I do it in the morning, but I do it at night. And so I found it to be so relaxing. And I will say that sometimes it's a video message, sometimes it's reading, sometimes it's just listening to music. So it's just my own little way of kind of starting my day and ending my day. And it's just really helped me kind of get myself kind of on that even keel and find a little bit more of a balance for me. Anyone else do anything different or anything you'd like to share in terms of how you're moving forward with new ways of doing things?
This is Colleen. I'm just trying to get up and walk for like 15 minutes to half an hour every day. I just find I'm sitting way too much at home in front of the computer. At the office, you're up and moving and going from place to place, and at home, you feel like you're stuck in front of this computer. And so getting up, I had a epiphany when I think it was last Thursday or Friday, I only did 860 steps for the day.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, that's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been getting up and moving and trying to get 10,000 steps a day. Not to that I always do, but just trying to get up a couple times a day and get out and breathe fresh air.
Yeah.
I found even when folks transition to working from home, you know, for a day or two, you may not notice it, but if you don't have a dedicated desk or, you know, even an office chair, working from a kitchen table feels different than, you know, the office, like official office stuff. So even just like figuring out what's comfortable and what's, you know, good ergonomics for working from home is an adjustment. So yeah, that getting up and moving is great. I have a little reminder on my phone that goes off at 1 o'clock every day for, you know, have I been up and about and whatnot. And sometimes I do hit snooze a couple times, but, you know, get back to it once I can. So.
Well, I think that becomes a really key thing because there's a lot of writing going on about now this phenomena of working from home. And for some people, they've been at it for almost 3 months, a lot of us 2 months now. And it's changed us, and we've got to think about it. So one of the things the psychologist wrote about, he said, you know, it is still important to give yourself a little time off. You know, you may think it's funny because you're at home, but you're working. And in fact, you're probably working more than you were when you were in the office because you don't have that physical break to drive home. So he suggested, just like if you needed a break from work for a half day off or a day off, to just do nothing. Don't let it become this trap that you're now working 7 days a week from home, and that wears you down as well. The one thing I've tried is a little bit different, and that is we have an area now that we are trying to explore. And so I'm going to practice my 15 minutes with all of you at once in a minute. So I get to count that as 20 minutes because I got all of you on this listening. So that is, we have a lot of folks that have worked for years and have loved the idea of going to work every day, and they can't go to work. So I started asking people that are key people in this field in the employment world who have spent their careers helping us plan and get people jobs, and ask them, what can we be sharing or saying with folks who are really missing going to work? And it becomes that routine is a challenge. And how could we record some messages that would help us with that of folks that miss going to work? And suggestions came in on a lot of great topics, including you need to replace a short-term new routine with the routine of going to work. What are skills you were working on at work that we can do at home? If it was cleaning silverware, if it was setting tables at a restaurant, if it was it's hard to wash the car or work on the engine at home sometimes, but how do you find things that'll help your skills stay sharp for a half an hour a day that begins encouraging people? And if you find somebody that says, I hated my job, I'm glad I'm not going back there, this is an excellent time to talk about, well, what did you hate about that job and what would be a better job for you that you would love going to? So it becomes another opportunity as we begin thinking about that to see and explore with people along the way. And what I found when I've asked people about this, they've said, that's a really good question. I need to think about it. We've thought so long about how to prepare people for work that now in this opportunity when nobody can go to work, how do we help them understand that? So again, shifting that message in some different ways and begin thinking about that.
Yeah, another, this is a new habit actually for my daughter. One of the things they did was assign another support person. So they put them in teams and they're responsible for touching base with that other person twice a week. And I was talking to another provider agency and she was mentioning that they actually did staff support groups for their staff members. And I got thinking about that. Well, that's kind of what my daughter Emily's doing right now is there's this support person that she's responsible for just connecting with, and it's just a check-in. So they call twice a week, usually on a Monday and a Friday, just to check in with each other. And I started thinking about that with this other provider agency and the support that they were doing with their group. So I haven't been able to talk with her a lot about that, but I found it interesting that they had implemented something very similar because people are so used to connecting. Now there's nothing, and just having support staff or another person to touch base with, to check in and just ask how you doing, what's taking place, I thought was another great idea and a new habit that I know my daughter's getting used to doing. So, and she loves doing it. So it's kind of nice, but it is just a quick call. So again, if there's something different that you're doing, think about your own self-care. How do you make it happen? How do you make sure that you're going to do it? Like Rebecca was saying, she's got a reminder on her calendar to just get up at 1 o'clock and make sure that she is walking. Set time in the mornings, in the afternoons, whatever it takes to do something a little bit different. So just keep that in mind as you continue to think about your own well-being. And with that, we do have some videos that we want to highlight for your own self-care. And it's always important that you make sure that, you've got a lot on your plate. You're leaders of an organization. It takes a lot of time and energy. If you go out to the search bar on the Quillo app, you can type in yoga, breathing, calm, self-care, any of those things. Here's a few other different videos that we've put up since last week. Why self-care matters is one title, 3 ideas. One of my favorite, self-care, it's more than a piece of chocolate. I always have to remember that. I could eat a whole bag at times. Self-care, a parent's perspective, another good video. And then bringing the calm sights of spring to you, just kind of a nice relaxation video. So find the videos that work for you and, and share those with others if they're having a rough day. So any other ideas or tips around the self-care?
Oh, so Barbara, if you wanted to find those, if you just put in the top of the app on the search bar, you could type in self-care and it'll bring all the videos up that tag that are in there, as well as many others as we look at it.
All right. Well, that wraps up our conversation for today. Again, I appreciate everyone's input. It's good to see folks, to touch base, to hear that you're being creative, doing things to really help support your team, as well as those people that you support out there. So keep up the great work. We're here to help in any way. So if you have a question, if you have any other thoughts or ideas, please throw it our way. Our next call will be May 21st. If there's a specific topic or something that you want us to take the lead on and share information about, we're happy to do that. Just let us know. And Colleen, we appreciate sharing some of your resources. We'll make sure that we get those out for folks. And with that, unless anybody has any other questions, we'll wrap it up for today.
Thank
We
you so
really
much,
appreciate it.
everybody.
Yeah.
Be
Take care.
safe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care. Bye now.
Bye-bye.